Hey everyone, it's White Cross, and you have joined me for the Basics of Bullion Volume 3, an introduction to gold weights and measures. So this Basics of Bullion series is really designed for you first-time gold buyers out there who are waiting on the sidelines, maybe have contemplated buying some gold, but just aren't sure where to start. So if that's you, you've come to the right place. This is a nice, slow introduction to the idea of gold weights and measures. For you more experienced hands out there who have bought and sold gold maybe in the past, some of this information might be redundant, but I'm a big fan of continuing education and trying to keep on building on that knowledge base that you have. So while this video series is really designed for you new folks out there, you more experienced gold buyers may get a little bit of information from this, and I'm really glad that you're sitting here watching this video as well. If you're new to the channel, I like to begin all of my videos with a disclaimer. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not trying to give you financial advice. I'm just looking to share some of the information that I've gleaned in the last 3 or 4 decades that I have been buying and selling precious metals and rare coins. And I also would like to encourage you, if you are new to this channel and you're watching for the first time, to go ahead and subscribe to the channel. It will alert you when we release new videos, but it also helps us in the algorithm when people are searching for this kind of information. It brings this up, and it will hopefully help other people the same way that hopefully it will help you. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you as always for being with me here again today. I really appreciate your time. And if you are returning and you haven't yet subscribed, this is a great opportunity. Go ahead and click that button as well. So I begin all of the videos not with just with that disclaimer, but also I try to share some information in the form of concepts. And the concept I'd like to talk about in this video, this introduction to gold weights and measures, is the idea of premiums. And that comes into play a little bit later when we start talking about the sizes of some of these coins, the weights of some of these coins. Premiums. Premium is the amount of money that you pay above the value of the precious metal for whatever it is that you're buying. If it's a silver coin, if it's a gold bar, they almost always will have a premium. And a premium, as it refers to precious metals, is simply the amount of money that you are charged over and above the value of the precious metals contained within. So, for example, if you go to your local coin store and you would like to buy a 1-ounce gold coin, and gold is, let's use a theoretical price of $2,000 an ounce, you probably can't buy that gold coin for $2,000. You will have to pay a premium above the value of that gold. And that premium goes for the seller's profit. It helps keep their lights on. It pays their employees. It takes care of their inventory. It also helps cover that spread. So if they bought that gold coin from somebody when gold was really high, and now they're selling it to you today and gold has dropped a little bit, it helps cushion that blow a little bit, keeps the store operable. So we can't avoid premiums most of the time. The goal is to try to get the piece that you want with the lowest premium. Premium, that's all it is, the amount you pay over and above the cost of the gold. We'll touch on that a little bit later in the video as well. So, weights and measures for gold. If you remember in the last video, we talked about there being 2 common scales that are used for measuring gold purity. We talked about carats and we talked about a percentage. And the way that they really mean the same thing, it's just 2 different ways of looking at it. I use the analogy of measuring lumber, measuring wood in inches or in feet. It's the same length, it's the same piece of wood, it's just a different scale used to measure it. And weights and measures, at least in the West, in America where I am and where most of you are going to be, or even in places like Europe, the weights and measures of gold are most often measured in one of 2 ways. The first one is troy ounces, and the second one is grams. So we'll jump right into this and we'll talk about troy ounces first. What is a troy ounce? If you are new to the concept of troy ounces, it might sound kind of familiar, and that's because if you are from America, from the West, you probably have been weighing things in ounces your whole life. This is an example of a bag of pistachios, and you can see right there it says 0.75 ounces. When you're measuring something like food, in fact, when you're measuring just about anything else that's a dry product, a liquid ounce is different, but when you're measuring dry products like flour or pistachios, you are talking about a type of ounce that is an avoirdupois or avoirdupois. It's the term that we use to describe this kind of ounce. And that kind of ounce is so ubiquitous. We are so used to measuring things in those ounces that we don't usually use that avoirdupois or avoirdupois terminology. It's just kind of understood. When we're talking about things like food, we weigh it in avoirdupois ounces. So we just drop out the avoirdupois and we just call it ounces. Unfortunately, precious metals are also weighed in ounces, but they are weighed in troy ounces. A troy ounce, spelled Troy, is another system of measurements that uses ounces, but troy ounces weigh a little bit more than the avoirdupois ounces that we're used to. Fortunately, precious metals are really the only things that are measured in troy ounces. It goes for platinum, palladium, gold, silver. They are all weighed and measured in troy ounces, and that's really the only time that you'll ever see the troy ounce used. Troy ounces are about 10% heavier than the avoirdupois ounces that we're used to. So in terms of grams, and again, we'll talk about grams in just a moment, but to give you kind of an illustration, a avoirdupois ounce is 28.34 grams. A troy ounce is 31.103 grams. So it's just about 10% heavier for a troy ounce. But when you see the word ounce used in regards to precious metals, 99.9% of the time, that ounce figure that you're being presented with is a troy ounce. For example, if you got on a website like Kitco, which posts the price of silver and gold and platinum and palladium as they are traded on the exchanges around the world as a commodity, they will quote the price per ounce. So let's use that theoretical $2,000 an ounce again figure. When they say $2,000 per ounce, they are talking about troy ounces. And that's understood all throughout the industry. Very, very rarely will you have any question about whether or not they are using troy ounces. And honestly, most of the time, if you don't see troy ounces specified, it could just be an indication that someone's trying to pull a fast one on you. But it happens so infrequently. For any quality gold buyer, any seller that knows what they're talking about, any reputable dealer, when they talk about an ounce coin, that's what they mean. They mean a troy ounce. So troy ounce is a little bit more of an archaic style of weighing, almost kind of similar to the carat style that we talked about when we were talking about gold purity. It actually began possibly as early as the Roman times, going back up a couple thousand years ago, but it really took off in the 13 or 1400s in medieval Europe, and they were trying to standardize weights as it helped in trade. And the city of Troyes in France was really kind of behind that push to use those ounces that weigh 31.1035 grams. And that just became tradition, just kind of like the same way that carats became the tradition for gold purity. Even though it sounds a little bit archaic now to our ears in modern times, this is just a tradition, and it's been used for nearly 1,000 years now. So whenever you're talking about the big, major, modern gold bullion coins that are available on the market today, for example, the Krugerrand, the South African Krugerrand, the British Britannia, the Philharmonic from Austria, the Gold Libertad from Mexico, the Gold Maple from Canada. Those coins, regardless of purity, contain 1 troy ounce of pure gold. So when you're being quoted the price for a gold maple or a gold buffalo or a Krugerrand, it's understood that you're talking about the 1 ounce coin. That is the main standard weight for all of those. All of those coins also have available fractional sizes. So you don't have to buy the full 1 ounce, 1 troy ounce gold coin. You can buy fractions of them as well. And those fractions seem to mimic pretty well the kind of fractional coins that we're used to. If you want to imagine, for example, an American dollar, you can pretend that the Krugerrand is that main unit, but then you also have half Krugerrands, or a half dollar, and quarter Krugerrands, or a quarter dollar, and then 10th Krugerrands as well, and that would be the equivalent of a dime. This is an example of a 10th Krugerrand, and this is an example of the full Krugerrand. So you can see fractional units. They are fractions of troy ounces, and almost every major bullion coin that I can think of has those fractional units available. These are examples of quarter eagles, quarter American gold eagles, and these are 10th eagles. So those really common fractional sizes, the full coin, a half, a quarter, and a 10th. There are some coins, some of these major gold bullion pieces that come in even smaller fractions, 20ths, 25ths, but for most purposes that aren't really kind of a gimmick, the 10th ounce is usually about the smallest you'll find, and the half and the quarter and the 10th are just kind of logical fractions of those major coins. And we talked before about premiums, and I wanted to reintroduce that concept of premiums as you're probably looking towards buying your first major gold purchase. And the premium is important because the premium, again, is the amount that you pay over the cost of the metal contained within the coin itself, or bar. And you can kind of look at it, for example, if you go to a restaurant that has an automatic tip built in, an 18% or 15% gratuity, you're paying for the meal, and then you have to pay for that gratuity on top of it. That's kind of similar to those premiums. If you bought a recent concert ticket, you know the concert ticket might be $50 or $100, but then Ticketmaster or one of the other ticketing companies includes their fees as well. That's kind of the way to look at those premiums. Again, you can't really avoid those premiums. The person you're buying it from, unless you're buying it from another individual, needs to keep their store lights on. They need to pay their employees. They need to make a profit too. Your goal is to try to get the coin with the smallest premium, everything else being equal. Condition, the day that you're buying it, everything else, you want to get that small a premium as you can, because by doing that, you are putting more of your hard-earned money into the gold rather than paying that premium. And I wanted to give you some examples of how premiums differ by size. Premiums have been very, very high lately. These are some of the largest premiums that I've seen in the 30 or 40 years that I've been doing this, and that goes for both silver and gold right now. The market has become so strange that premiums are in times going even higher than the value of the precious metal themselves. For example, right now, if you were to go to one of the major online bullion retailers, and I looked up APMEX before I came to shoot this video, but most of them are very similar right now. They seem to be running very tightly against each other. A 1 ounce gold eagle, and again, that's the American modern 22 karat gold coin. These are quarter eagles. This isn't the full size, but a full size gold eagle has a premium of about $188 over the cost of the gold. So that's the premium you'll be paying for buying a gold eagle right now. A 1/10 gold eagle, like this one, also has a premium of almost exactly the same amount. So $183 is the premium that they are charging right now for a 1/10 gold eagle. Extrapolate that out. If there are 10 of these per ounce, which there are, this is a 1/10 coin, 10 of these would make an ounce. You would be paying $1,830 in premium to buy an ounce worth of these 10th eagles. And if you just bought a single gold eagle by itself, $188. So those premiums matter a lot when you're buying precious metals, and almost universally, the premium is higher, at least relative to the value of the gold, the smaller the gold coin is that you're buying. For example, those gold eagles. A 1 ounce gold eagle has a $188 premium. A 1/10 has a $183 premium. And again, that's per coin. That's not measured in ounces. Every single one of those 1/10 ounce gold eagles will have that same premium. So while you might think as a new gold buyer that it makes sense to buy the smallest gold coin you have, and there are some positives and negatives to having smaller units, it's not always the case because those premiums tend to be much, much higher the smaller the gold coin or bar. Premiums really do come into play. It's something you need to consider. You're not going to be able to just go online or go into a local store and buy a 1/2 or 1/4 or 1/10 troy ounce coin and pay 1/2, 1/4, or 1/10 the price of gold for that day. You will be paying a premium. Watch those premiums on those smaller units. So these are examples of modern gold bullion coins that are all denominated in troy ounces. And I wanted to just give you a quick illustration of what it looks like. Most of these modern bullion coins will say right on them both the weight and the purity. So this South African Cougarand actually says 1 ounce fine gold. Fine in this case means pure, 999 pure. It's interchangeable. Fine gold means 999 pure, and you can see right there it actually tells you the weight and the purity. That is almost always the case with modern gold bullion coins. Modern gold bullion coins will almost always tell you the weight and the purity. You can see there at the bottom of this quarter eagle. Let's see if I can bring it into, there we go. So you can actually see what the weight and the purity is on the coin itself. That is typical for modern gold bullion coins. These are 10th maples, 10th Krugerands, 10th eagles, and quarter eagles. And they all indicate on them their purity and their weight, almost always given in troy ounces. So we've talked about troy ounces as one of the most common weight systems that are used for measuring precious metals. But as with the percentage in the purity of gold, there is also kind of the similar weight system used for gold, and that is grams. So let's talk a little bit about grams. What is a gram? Let's see if I can get this into frame. This is one of my digital scales. And since you can't really get the feel for how much these weigh in my hands on a video, I wanted to give you an illustration. This is a standard large size paper clip, and I've got my digital scale set for grams. Digital scale, you might recall if you've watched my tools of the trade, the tools that I use when I'm buying and selling gold on a daily basis. I have a system of tools in place, and one of the most important tools is a simple digital scale. They're inexpensive and they really help you out a lot. I will leave a link to that video down below, but here's an example of a gram. This is one large paper clip. And you can see one large paper clip weighs exactly 1 gram. I had to catch myself there in one of the earlier videos. I talk about it being a paper weight. It's clearly a paper clip, and you can see it weighs exactly 1 gram. So to give you an idea of what a gram is, one large paper clip weighs 1 gram. So here are some examples of bars that come in gram sizes. And the interesting thing about bars is that the smaller bars are weighted in grams or weighed in grams usually. The larger bars are weighed in grams usually, but there is one exception. And that exception is the 1 ounce gold bars. That's probably the most popular size gold bar, and it weighs 1 troy ounce. So even though the smaller bars go in grams, the larger bars in grams, those ones right in the middle, the most common gold bar, is probably the 1 troy ounce gold bar. And there is a reason for that, just as a quick aside. When you are looking online, as I said earlier, on a place like Kitco, and you're looking at the price of gold, it's being given in troy ounces. So it's very convenient when you have troy ounce bars, you know exactly down to the penny how much each one of those is worth based on the afternoon gold fix or whatever it is that Kitco is reporting, or any of the other many sites that report the gold prices around the world 24 hours a day. So 1 ounce bars, 1 ounce coins, they both share that really simple ease of use. When you're looking at the price, you know automatically how much your gold is worth if you've got it in those full ounces or even fractional sizes. But grams rather, this is an example of a 1 gram gold bar. And you can see the difference. This is 1 gram of gold, and this is 1 troy ounce in a form of a Krugerrand. The Krugerrand is much, much bigger than a gram. And again, 1 troy ounce weighs 31.1035 grams, like this one. The nice thing about these grams is that they too often say the purity of the gold and the weight of the gold. So it usually says 1 gram. This is a 5 gram gold bar, and you can see it's just slightly larger. There we go. Than the 1 gram. In fact, it's exactly 5 times as big. And here is an example of a 10-gram gold bar. Again, for everybody who's watched my videos before, you know that I'm a big fan of Johnson Matthey and Inglehart, so of course I've got some Johnson Matthey gold as well. I mentioned every major gold coin on the market. All major modern gold bullion coins are weighed in troy ounces. And I mentioned in the last video that there was one exception, and that is the Chinese panda. From the time it was first introduced in 1982 all the way up until 2016, so just a few years ago, those gold pandas also contained 1 troy ounce of pure gold. But in 2016, the Chinese government reduced the amount of gold from 31.1 and change grams of gold down to 30 grams. And they claimed it was as they were trying to standardize everything and put it in grams, but a 30-gram unit to me doesn't make a lot of sense. That's kind of an odd weight, maybe a 50-gram or a 100-gram, because remember that grams are metric. So a base 10 system means a 10-gram makes sense, that's logical. A 100-gram makes sense, that's logical. A 30-gram is just kind of an odd weight, and to me, that was just an excuse for them to demonetize or to debase their own gold coins. Debasement, in the simplest terms, just means that they kept the face value of those pandas the same, but they reduced the amount of gold contained within them. And that's just one of the reasons why I don't like to recommend gold pandas. I don't own any gold pandas with very few exceptions, and they're not something I recommend unless you are a really advanced stacker who has a very specific desire for them. And I wanted to just show a quick example. Most coins, as we said, are denominated or listed in troy ounces, but some of the gold coins around the world do have that little tiny 1 gram version, and this is a 1 gram panda. So this is how big a single gram would be. I believe the Canadian maples also come in gram sizes, and there are a few others that are toying with that idea. But watch those premiums. Like we said before, the premiums on smaller coins tends to be larger, and sometimes much, much larger than it is for those larger coins. And if you're spending a lot of money on premium, you are necessarily spending less money on the precious metal that you're after, and I don't want you to do that. So, grams, you saw that a gram is roughly the size of a large paper clip. There's some examples here of 1, 5, 10 gram, and even a 1 gram coin for you to take a look at and see just how small the gram is. It's a very precise measurement, but it doesn't have to be the only precise measurement. And I wanted to give a quick example of some other options that are not modern gold bullion coins or modern gold bars. And the examples I have for you up here are some that you've seen before in the earlier videos. These are some examples of the English or the British sovereign. We talked about those being a popular gold coin, and they are still minted to this day. Going back in England to the early 1800s, they're roughly the size of United States nickel. They are made of 22 karat gold, you'll recall from the previous video, so 91.67% purity. The balance in copper or a little bit of silver. And each of these contains 0.2355 troy ounces. So if you're looking at in terms of a decimal point or a percentage, a quarter troy ounce would be 0.25, obviously. This sovereign is 0.2355, so just a little bit smaller, a little bit less weight than a quarter modern bullion coin. It's another option. These are classic gold coins. This was introduced in the 1800s and is still made to this day, but this was actually a circulating gold coin in the United Kingdom and all of the British colonies for hundreds of years. So this is an example of a classic gold coin. Classic gold coins made as far back as 2,000, 2,500 years ago, if you'll remember that very small Western Turkey Anatolia coin I showed in the last video, or rather the first video in this series. 2,500 years is how long people have been using, give or take, gold in circulation. But gold started leaving circulation in about the 1930s, and by the end of World War II, 1945, somewhere in there, most countries in the world had removed their gold from circulation for one reason or another. So classic gold coins are those that came out, for our intents and purposes, essentially the turn of the century, 1900 up until about 1945, somewhere in there. Some examples of some American classic gold bullion. So these actually date from the late 1800s to the early 1900s. These are $5 gold pieces, and this was our circulating gold coinage. Remember, gold was money. So the mints made these, and these were spent. The average person, if they had enough money to have $5 locked up in the form of a coin, it wouldn't be unusual for them to have these kind of gold coins in their hands also. These contain 0.24187 of a troy ounce. So again, really close to that quarter of a troy ounce. And when you're buying these from a seller who knows what they have, a reputable coin shop or online bullion dealer, it is often expressed, their weight is often expressed in quarters of, or in percentage of a troy ounce. So that 0.2355, that 0.24187, and that way it's a simple calculation. You look at the price of gold on that particular day and you multiply it by that percentage, 0.24 or 0.2355, and you can find out exactly the amount of gold contained within these classic coins. It's important to understand that you might have to convert those because the classic gold coins traditionally did not show on the coin itself its weight in gold or its purity in gold. It was kind of known if you lived in these countries what the weight and purity was, and frankly, that didn't really matter that much to you because it was the face value that you would have concerned yourself with. Now, 100 years after or close to it, that gold coins had been issued by the United States government for commerce, we have to do a quick calculation. But you can find the information on the vast majority of these circulating gold coins online, and I will leave a link down below as well to a couple different locations where you can find their purities and their weights. And it's a really simple calculation. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's a very simple transaction to do, and you can find out exactly how much gold is contained within these classic gold pieces. But you can start to see how easy it is and how nice it is to have the gold purity and weight listed on these modern pieces, as well as their relation. If it's a full ounce, if it's a half ounce, a quarter ounce, a tenth ounce, it's so much easier to calculate the gold's value based on the price of gold on that any particular day, just by looking at that full weight or that fraction and easily calculating how much that gold is worth. So an introduction to the most common weights and measures used in the West, in the United States and most of Europe as well. When we're talking about precious metals, we're talking about 1 ounce coins, we're talking about troy. Troy ounce, remember, is 31.1035 grams. But in all honesty, if you're buying a gold coin or a fraction of a gold coin, it's easy to check that market price online and figure out exactly how much gold you're buying and how much gold you're selling. If you're buying the older pieces, these classic gold pieces, generally speaking, before 1945, you might have to look up online to see how much gold they contain and do a quick calculation. If you're buying bars, for the most part, those bars are pretty easy to calculate. But for me, I'm used to troy ounces, so I don't use grams that often. To me, it's a little bit cumbersome when I'm given the price of gold in a troy ounce to have to remember to divide that by 31.1035 and then multiply that price by however many grams are contained within your gold bar. I would rather just have gold ounces and fractions of troy ounces. It's just a lot easier for me. There are other units of weight that are used, and I don't want to bog you down with a lot of information, but I just thought I'd show you a couple quick examples. This is kind of almost a novelty piece now, but this is a 1 grain gold bar, and this was an attempt to make kind of a standardized tradable unit of gold back in the 1980s. A grain is such a small unit that there are 15.432 grains to a gram. Remember, a gram is pretty small to begin with, but you're talking about a grain, you're talking about a very small amount of gold. Grains were popular as a weight and a measure of precious metals for the 1800s up until maybe the 1960s, 1970s, but they have really kind of gone by the wayside. We don't discuss grains very often anymore. It's such a small amount that grams are as precise as we need to be, or the decimal point carried out 2 or 3 or 4 places when we're talking about troy ounces. But they're not the only system of measurement that was in use. If you are from China, or if you've dealt with Chinese coins before besides those pandas, their typical traditional weight unit for precious metals was a tael, Tael. And that was what they measured precious metals in China and a lot of the territories around China for hundreds of years. If you're from Thailand and some other parts of Southeast Asia, you might use a baht, B-A-H-T. That's their unit of measurement. It doesn't matter, but that's 15.244 grams. And if you're from India, you might be used to a tola. This is a gold tola. That was their weight system that was used in India for hundreds of years and still used to this day, but it's slowly being replaced, as are all of those different measurements, with grams. Troy ounces, kind of a traditional measurement too, but I think a lot of these countries are moving towards the gram weight system. This Indian tola dates to the 1950s. So some examples of other measurements that are used. It's important to understand troy ounces, usually used for coins and fractions thereof. Bars often weighed in grams, except for those 1 troy ounce bars. And then classic coins, you'll have to look up online to see how much gold they contain, both in terms of purity and their weight. But it's not as difficult as you might think. One caveat, it's important to understand that when you're dealing with coins that have been alloyed with other metals, for example, as we said in the last video, that American gold coins, classic American gold coins, were 90% gold and 10% copper. You'll often see the weights given for both the full coin itself and then also its gold weight. So you're just focusing on that gold weight, and that's typically called the actual gold weight. AGW is often used as the acronym. So you'll find the actual gold weight, and that's what you're more concerned with. It doesn't really matter how much the coin weighs. If it's been alloyed with a bunch of copper, a small amount of copper, it doesn't really matter. You're after that actual gold weight. So almost a little bit more of an advanced topic, but I wanted to give you examples of gold coins that are commonly purchased, especially by young buyers, by new buyers, that don't indicate the weight of the gold or the purity of the gold, but it's not that difficult to figure out. So an introduction to bullion weights and measures. This is the 3rd video in this series. We may make some more videos in the series, but I might jump forward and call them introductions to introductory pieces for new gold buyers, and almost kind of different series. I haven't decided yet, but I want you to be aware of it when those pieces come out, when those videos come out, because they will contain some examples of pieces you might want to consider for your first gold purchase, or even just a few early gold purchases. Some examples that I think are really appropriate for new gold buyers. So click on that subscription button, and that way you'll find about these videos as they are released. As always, at the conclusion of the videos, I'd like for you to leave comments down below, and I'll try to respond to them if I can. If you have any suggestions about making future videos, leave a comment down below and I'll take a look and see if I've got the inventory and the information that might help you answer the questions that you have. If you have any questions about these particular items, go ahead and leave a comment down below. I'd love to get back to you as soon as I can on that too. And as always, thank you for allowing me to be a part of your journey as you go deeper into the world of physical precious metals.